Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the quiet solitude of his sanctuary, a flicker of light from the smartphone illuminated Odin's face, displaying a dating app icon on the dark screen. With a trembling finger, he approached the enter button as if it were a detonator, aware of the digital explosion it could set off in his mundane life. His fear-stricken eyes darted around the room, prepared for an intruder to materialize from the shadows. After summoning the courage to press, a melodic chime reverberated, signifying the beginning of his clandestine venture. This wasn't your typical foray into the realm of modern love. This was Odin's initial step towards an alternative narrative, a narrative he had meticulously concealed. Beneath the bed, a furtive secret lay tucked away. Uncovering the cache, he delicately extracted a golden wig, his fingers trembling as if cradling explosive strands. The ritual of donning this deceptive piece brought an exhilarating fusion of emotions, akin to embracing the unknown with every fiber of his being. The person staring back at him from the mirror was Amira, his alter ego, his secret self. Odin had always felt a disconnect between his outer appearance and inner identity. Dressing as Amira in the privacy of his home had become a source of comfort and joy. But now, he was taking a huge risk by bringing her into the digital world. He carefully applied makeup, transforming his features with practiced ease. A touch of foundation here, a swipe of mascara there. When he was finished, he slipped on a red dress that hugged his carefully padded figure. Odin, now Amira, posed for a series of selfies, trying to capture the perfect mix of allure and approachability. After agonizing over each photo, he finally selected the best ones for his profile.
Amira, 28.
He typed, his fingers trembling slightly.
Looking for meaningful connections and new experiences.
It wasn't entirely a lie, he told himself. This was Amira's chance to experience the world, even if it was through a screen. As he filled out the rest of the profile, Odin felt a mix of exhilaration and guilt. Was he deceiving people by presenting himself as Amira? But then again, wasn't Amira just as real a part of him as Odin? He hesitated one last time before hitting submit. Once this profile went live, there was no going back. With a surge of courage, he pressed the button. Almost immediately, notifications began to pop up. Likes, messages, potential matches. Odin's heart raced as he scrolled through them. People found Amira attractive, interesting, worth talking to. It was intoxicating. Over the next few days, Odin found himself constantly checking the app. He chatted with several matches, reveling in the flirtatious banter and genuine conversations. As Amira, he felt free to express parts of himself he usually kept hidden. But the constant fear of discovery lurked in the back of his mind. What if someone recognized him? What if they found out the truth? Despite his anxiety, Odin couldn't resist when one particularly charming match asked Amira out on a date. His name was Ryan, and he seemed intelligent, funny, and kind. Against his better judgment, Odin agreed to meet him at a local cafe. The day of the date arrived, and Odin spent hours getting ready. He chose a blue sundress and sandals, hoping to project a casual, breezy vibe. His blonde wig was carefully styled, and his makeup was flawless. As he walked into the cafe, Odin's heart was pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. He spotted Ryan at a corner table and froze. The man was even more handsome in person, with warm brown eyes and a welcoming smile.
Amira?
Ryan stood up, his expression brightening.
It's great to finally meet you.
Odin nodded, not trusting his voice. He sat down, trying to remember how to act natural.
You look lovely,
Ryan said, his eyes twinkling.
That blue really suits you. Thank you.
Odin replied softly, pitching his voice higher.
You look nice too.
They fell into conversation, and Odin gradually began to relax. Ryan was easy to talk to, and he found himself enjoying the date despite his nerves. But as they were discussing their favorite books, a familiar voice called out,
Odin? Is that you?
Odin's blood ran cold. He turned to see his co-worker, Mark, staring at him in confusion.
I'm sorry,
Odin said quickly, his voice still in Amira's higher register.
You must have me confused with someone else.
Mark frowned, looking between Odin and Ryan.
But you look just like... Never mind. Sorry to interrupt.
As Mark walked away, Odin could feel Ryan's questioning gaze.
Who was that?
He asked.
I have no idea.
Odin lied, his hands shaking under the table. Maybe I just have one of those faces. The rest of the date passed in a blur of anxiety. Odin made an excuse about feeling unwell and left early, practically running home. He collapsed on his bed, still in Amira's clothes, feeling sick with fear and shame. Despite the close call, Odin couldn't bring himself to delete the app. The validation and connection he felt as Amira were too addictive. He continued chatting with matches, but became more cautious about meeting in person. His second date as Amira was with a man named Chris. They had been talking for weeks, and Chris had been charming and respectful. But as soon as they met at a small restaurant, Odin sensed something was off. Chris's eyes raked over Amira's body in a way that made Odin deeply uncomfortable. His comments became increasingly suggestive, and he kept pressing for Amira to come back to his place.
I'm not comfortable with that,
Odin said firmly, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice.
I think I should go.
Chris's charming facade dropped instantly.
Come on, don't be such a tease,
he growled, grabbing Odin's wrist.
You've been leading me on for weeks.
Panic surged through Odin. He wrenched his arm away and stood up, knocking over his chair.
Don't touch me,
he snapped, his voice dropping to its natural register in his distress. Chris's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger.
What the hell? Are you some kind of freak?
Odin didn't wait to hear more. He bolted from the restaurant, tears blurring his vision. He ran until his lungs burned, finally collapsing on a park bench. As he sat there, mascara streaking his cheeks, he wondered if this whole experiment had been a terrible mistake. But still, he couldn't bring himself to delete the app. The allure of being Amira, of being seen and appreciated, was too strong. He told himself that the next date would be better. He just needed to be more careful. His third date seemed promising at first. The man's name was Eric, and he was new to the area. They agreed to meet at a quiet bar for drinks. Odin chose a green wrap dress for the occasion, feeling more confident in his ability to pass as Amira. As he walked into the bar, he spotted Eric immediately. The man's face lit up in recognition, but then quickly morphed into an expression of shock and disbelief.
Odin?
Eric gasped.
Is that really you?
Odin's heart stopped. How did this stranger know his real name? But as he looked closer, a horrifying realization dawned on him. This wasn't a stranger at all. It was his cousin, whom he hadn't seen in years.
Eric,
Odin whispered, his voice cracking.
I can explain.
But Eric was already backing away, shaking his head. I can't. I'm sorry. I have to go. As Eric hurried out of the bar, Odin sank onto a nearby stool, feeling as if the ground had dropped out from under him. His worst fear had come true. Someone from his real life had discovered his secret. He stumbled home in a daze, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Would Eric tell the family? Would everyone find out? The thought made him physically ill. As soon as he got home, Odin tore off the wig and dress, scrubbing the makeup from his face with shaking hands. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, seeing both Odin and Amira, feeling torn between two identities. In that moment, he made a decision. He picked up his phone and deleted the dating app. No more lies, no more deception. But as he looked at the removed makeup and discarded clothes, he realized something important. Amira wasn't just a character he had created for the app. She was a part of him, a true expression of his identity that he had been suppressing for years. The app had been a misguided attempt to explore that side of himself, but it had also shown him that he couldn't keep living a double life. Over the next few weeks, Odin began the difficult process of coming to terms with his identity. He sought out a therapist who specialized in gender identity issues and started to explore what it would mean to transition. He also reached out to Eric, terrified but knowing he needed to address what had happened. To his surprise, Eric was understanding and supportive.
I was just shocked, Eric explained. But I've had time to think, and I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter how you choose to live your life.
Slowly, cautiously, Odin began to open up to a few close friends about his feelings. Their acceptance and support gave him the courage to take the next steps in his journey. 6 months after that disastrous night at the bar, Odin stood in front of the mirror once again. But this time, there was no wig, no elaborate makeup. Just Odin, wearing a simple blue blouse and jeans, blonde hair grown out to brush his shoulders. He, now she, smiled at her reflection. The journey to become Amira completely was just beginning, but for the first time, she felt truly comfortable in her own skin. As she stepped out of her apartment, ready to face the world as her authentic self, Amira realized that she didn't need a dating app to validate her identity. The most important thing was being true to herself, and she was finally on the path to doing just that. The sun was bright as Amira walked down the street, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. This was her first day presenting as female in public, outside of those ill-fated dates. She had chosen a quiet coffee shop across town for her first outing, hoping to ease into this new chapter of her life. As she entered the shop, the barista smiled warmly. "Good morning! What can I get for you?" Amira ordered her usual latte, her voice still a bit shaky, but growing in confidence. She found a cozy corner seat and pulled out a book, trying to act natural despite the butterflies in her stomach. As she sipped her coffee and read, Amira gradually began to relax. No one was staring or pointing. She was just another customer enjoying a peaceful morning. A woman at the next table caught her eye and smiled. "I love your blouse," she said. "That shade of blue is gorgeous." Amira felt a warm glow of happiness. "Thank you," she replied, her voice growing stronger. "I just got it." They chatted for a few minutes about fashion and the book Amira was reading. As the woman left, she said, "It was nice meeting you. Have a great day." Amira sat back, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over her. She had just had a normal, pleasant interaction as herself. No deception, no fear of discovery, just Amira, being Amira. Over the next few weeks, Amira continued to build her confidence in public. She updated her wardrobe, experimenting with different styles to find what felt most authentically her. She practiced her voice, working with a speech therapist to find a tone that felt natural and feminine. There were still challenges, of course. She had to navigate coming out at work, which was nerve-wracking but ultimately went better than she had feared. Her boss was supportive, and while there were a few awkward moments with coworkers, most were accepting, or at least polite. Family was a more complicated matter. Eric had kept her secret, for which Amira was immensely grateful. With his support, she found the courage to come out to her parents. Their reaction was mixed: shock, confusion, and concern. But they didn't reject her outright. It would take time, but Amira hoped they would eventually come to accept her true self. As she became more comfortable in her identity, Amira found herself thinking about dating again. The disaster with the app had made her wary, but she also knew that she deserved to find love and companionship as her authentic self. This time, she decided to take a different approach. Instead of relying on apps or actively seeking dates, she focused on building a community and pursuing her interests. She joined a local book club and a hiking group, making new friends who only knew her as Amira. It was at one of these book club meetings that Amira met Liam. He was new to the group, with kind eyes and an easy laugh. They bonded over a shared love of science fiction and found themselves talking long after the official discussion had ended. As weeks passed, Amira and Liam grew closer. She enjoyed his company immensely, but was terrified of taking things further. The memory of her past dating disasters loomed large, and she feared how he might react if he knew about her journey. One evening, as they were walking home from a group outing, Liam turned to her with a nervous smile.
"Amira," he said, "I really like you. Would you like to go on a date sometime? Just the two of us?"
Amira's heart raced. She wanted to say yes, but she knew she couldn't start a potential relationship with secrets between them. Taking a deep breath, she said,
"Liam, I like you too, but before we go any further, there's something I need to tell you about myself."
They found a quiet bench in a nearby park, and Amira gathered her courage. Slowly, carefully, she told Liam about her journey, her past struggles, and her transition. She watched his face anxiously, terrified of seeing disgust or anger. But Liam's expression remained open and attentive. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, processing what she had shared. Then he reached out and gently took her hand.
"Thank you for trusting me with this,"
he said softly.
"It doesn't change how I feel about you, Amira. You're an amazing woman, and I'd still very much like to go on that date, if you're willing."
Tears of relief and joy sprang to Amira's eyes. She squeezed Liam's hand, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "I'd love to," she replied, her voice full of emotion. Their first official date was nothing like the anxiety-ridden encounters Amira had experienced before. They went to a small art gallery opening, chatting easily about the exhibits and their lives. Liam was respectful and attentive, never making Amira feel uncomfortable or different. As their relationship grew, Amira found herself opening up more and more. She shared her fears, her hopes, and her dreams for the future. Liam listened and supported her, celebrating her victories and comforting her through the tough times. 1 year after that first coffee shop outing, Amira stood in front of her mirror once again. She smoothed down her blue dress, the same color as that first blouse, but now a more confident, elegant style. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves around her face, expertly styled for the evening ahead. Liam was taking her out to celebrate the anniversary of her public transition. As she applied the finishing touches to her makeup, Amira marveled at how far she had come. From the terrified Odin creating a fake dating profile to the confident woman she was today, the journey had been long and often difficult. But standing here now, fully herself and loved for who she truly was, Amira knew it had all been worth it. She heard a knock at the door. Liam, right on time as always. With a smile, Amira grabbed her purse and went to greet him. As she opened the door and saw his face light up, she felt a surge of happiness and gratitude.
"You look beautiful,"
Liam said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. "Thank you," Amira replied, her voice strong and sure. "Shall we?" As they walked out into the evening, hand in hand, Amira reflected on the twists and turns that had brought her to this moment. The dating app disaster had been a low point, but it had also been the catalyst for her to embrace her true self. She had learned that real connections, whether romantic, familial, or friendships, could only be built on honesty and authenticity. Amira squeezed Liam's hand, feeling incredibly grateful for the love and acceptance she had found. As they strolled towards the restaurant, she looked forward to the future with hope and excitement. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she could face them as her true self, surrounded by people who loved her for exactly who she was. The night air was cool against Amira's skin as they walked, the city lights twinkling around them. She felt a sense of peace and belonging that she had never experienced as Odin. This was where she was meant to be, who she was meant to be. As they reached the restaurant, Liam held the door open for her with a flourish.
"After you, my lady,"
he said, with a playful grin. Amira laughed, the sound light and joyous. "Why, thank you, kind sir," she replied, matching his playful tone. They were seated at a cozy table near the window, soft candlelight flickering between them. As they perused the menus, Amira caught Liam watching her with a soft expression. "What?" she asked, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks. Liam reached across the table to take her hand. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am," he said, "to be here with you, celebrating how far you've come. You're incredible, Amira." Amira felt her heart swell with emotion. "I'm the lucky one," she replied, "to have found someone who accepts and loves me for who I am." As they enjoyed their meal, they reminisced about the past year, the challenges they'd faced, the moments of joy, the growth they'd experienced together. Amira found herself marveling at how different this was from those anxiety-ridden dates she'd been on as her former self. After dinner, they took a leisurely stroll through a nearby park. The paths were lit with soft lanterns, creating a romantic ambiance. They stopped on a small bridge overlooking a pond, the water's surface reflecting the starry sky above.
"I have something for you,"
Liam said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small, elegantly wrapped box. Amira's eyes widened in surprise. "Liam, you didn't have to—"
"I wanted to,"
he interrupted gently. "Open it." With slightly trembling fingers, Amira unwrapped the gift. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant in the shape of a butterfly. "It's beautiful," she breathed, running her finger over the intricate design. Liam took the necklace and moved behind her
to fasten it around her neck. I chose a butterfly because it reminded me of you, he explained. The way you've transformed, becoming your true self. You've always been beautiful, Amira, inside and out. But watching you spread your wings this past year has been amazing. Tears welled up in Amira's eyes as she turned to face him. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. For this. For everything. Liam cupped her face gently, wiping away a tear with his thumb. I love you, Amira, he said softly. All of you. I love you too, she replied, her heart feeling like it might burst with happiness. As they kissed under the starlit sky, Amira felt a profound sense of rightness. This was who she was always meant to be, and this was the kind of love she had always hoped to find. Later that night, as Amira prepared for bed, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The butterfly necklace glinted in the soft light, a symbol of her journey and her transformation. She touched it gently, thinking about how far she had come. From the scared and confused Odin, creating a false persona on a dating app, to the confident and happy Amira she was today. The path had been long and often difficult. But every struggle, every moment of fear or doubt had led her here. She thought about the disastrous dates, the close calls, the moment of horrifying recognition with her cousin. At the time, those experiences had felt like the end of the world. Now, she could see them for what they were, necessary steps on her journey to self-discovery and acceptance. As she slipped into bed, Amira felt a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the strength she had found within herself, for the supportive friends and family who had stood by her, and for Liam, who loved her completely and unconditionally. She knew there would still be challenges ahead. The world wasn't always kind to people like her, and there would always be those who didn't understand or accept her identity. But Amira was no longer afraid. She had found her truth, her voice, and her place in the world. As she drifted off to sleep, her hand resting lightly on the butterfly pendant, Amira smiled. Tomorrow was a new day, full of possibilities, and she was ready to face it as her authentic self, proud of who she was, and excited for what the future might bring.
Thanks
The
for
journey
watching,
that
my
had
girlies.
begun with a
Be
tentative
sure to
click
check out
on a
Patreon
dating
for
app
more.
had led her